Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Cardiff Central podcast after the Blue and Blacks went desperately close to getting a win against Munster on Saturday. We'll be discussing whether it's 2 points lost or 3 points, 2 points gained or 3 points lost for Cornel van Zyl's men, as well as Tony has made an actual tinfoil hat. There's snapped posts at the Arms Park, and who on earth is going to play at centre against Connacht on the weekend? Joining me on the panel this week is the aforementioned Tony Esposito. Tony, how are you?
I'm all right, thank you very much. Yeah, it's good.
We've got Andrew Ford. Fordy, how are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Would like to be a bit happier after the weekend, but good, all things considered.
And Simon Jones. Simon, how are you?
Yeah, all good, thanks, mate.
Good stuff. Right, we'll get straight into the action on Saturday night then. It was Munster 23, Cardiff 20 at Thomond Park. A tense first half with yellow cards for Josh McNally and Gavin Coombs. Try apiece made it 5-5 at half-time without any conversions. Tom Bowen scored twice, Dermot Barron and Coombs scored for Munster in the early part of the second half, but Munster just eked out an unassailable lead with Jack Crowley's boots knocking over a penalty and a drop goal late on, although Bowen did complete his hat-trick for 2 consolation losing bonus points. A couple of three-word thoughts, a mixed sort of response. A couple like Robert said line-out needs work, Mark said poor game management, Tom went with can't kick goals, and Rob said errors cost us. There's a little bit more positivity from guys like Paul, who said grit and grace. Dav said fight and enjoyment. And then Hugh summed it up with so fecking close. Tony, coming to you first, your general thoughts on the game?
I thought we played really well. Obviously, there are still moments where we look a little underpowered at times, but we took it to Munster at their patch where we don't get a lot of positive results, and to come away with 2 points, I think, sets us up for the rest of the block pretty well. Like we were talking about how losing now could have been a bad start to the block, but we've got 6 points from 2 games. That's good in my book.
Fordy, your general thoughts?
Yeah, no, I was very happy with how we performed. I thought, especially at the start of the season, I thought we could be going into this game getting potentially a bit of a hammer in, and I thought we played quite very well. And often enough, we like really switch off. There were definitely a few silly errors made, but there was no major error. You can argue maybe the kicking could have been a bit better, but I think we did stay in the game for quite a lot of it and kind of fight to get those 2 bonus points at the end. Kind of demonstrated that we didn't switch off completely.
And Simon?
Yeah, I mean, as Tony said, it's not a place that we go and get particularly good results. Watching the game, I didn't think they were necessarily that much better than us, which I don't think we can say for a month. You know, you'd expect to go to Thomond Park and get beaten up a little bit. And I don't think that happened. I thought it was really even, to be honest. Watching the game, I was like, well, kind of how we lost it. I think there were just a few like key moments, as you say, where we kind of went to sleep a little bit or a bit underpowered. But overall, I felt it was 2 pretty even sides. And considering the general feeling around Welsh rugby of we're not good enough going out there and matching them, even though, you know, they've probably got players missing, but we've got players missing as well, and coming away with a really even performance, maybe a little bit unlucky. And I thought Thomond Park seemed very quiet at the end, and I think they generally realised they maybe got away with one there, because it was the same as the Lions. I thought we defended really well in for large stages of the game, but we just gave them chances in our 22, especially like 5-metre tap penalties, and we just wilted a bit on our own line. But I don't think there's much to be negative about, if I'm honest. I just felt, yeah, maybe it's the one that got away, but were we expecting to win out there? I don't think any of us really would have predicted that. So 2 points is a bonus, and I don't think that's being kind of like negative or unambitious. I think it was just it was a good performance. I don't know how we didn't win it, to be honest, but there we go.
Previous years, though, we wouldn't have won it and we wouldn't have come away with anything. Like we would have fallen apart in the last 5 or 10 minutes chasing the game. And the fact that we went right to the end with another superb try from Tom Bowen just epitomizes what that squad has been doing for the last couple of years. There was, I can't remember how many turnovers there were in R22, but there was one superb by Alex Mann at some point. Like just the fight that they're showing, because it's not been an easy preseason, and the weather looked horrendous out there. So yeah, to come away with 2 points, it sounds defeatist, but it's 2 points that we wouldn't have got 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think we'd have fallen apart in that 10-minute sin bin.
Yeah. We were 5-0 in that period.
Yeah,
like that's unheard of for us.
We'd have shipped 3 tries and then been brave for the rest of it, trying to come back and forcing the play and then conceding another try. So we probably would have got a losing try bonus point with a kind of pat on the head of, oh, don't Cardiff play nice rugby? But thanks a lot. We'll take 7 tries against you, and that's it. And I think those 2 sin bin periods in both games have been really impressive because we haven't wilted at all and haven't taken a backward step physically in those periods, and we haven't let opposition sides necessarily get that close to the line through open play. So I think there's a lot to be positive about.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that, to be honest. I think the major point there is that final try that's not a try that we would have scored previously. In that moment where we know that, well, in our minds, I think we're still in it to win it. We scored the try actually before the clock turns 80, so I'm not sure if there should have been something there where we should have been allowed to kick off and give it a go. But certainly we know that we need to score a try to take anything home. There was no panic. There was no like chucking miracle passes or alternatively tightening up and stopping playing and just trying not to make a mistake. They went to attack as they have done all game and scored a really good try. And I think that's something that we certainly haven't done at times, particularly away from home in Ireland as well, somewhere that we do historically struggle. And I think after the game there was a few comments like the frustration you see in a couple of the 3-word comments there about a little bit of frustration from some saying we've thrown that away, but you don't want to keep sort of dumping down on Welsh rugby and giving people excuses, but there is a very big resource difference there between us and Ireland at the moment. That Munster squad is built with a lot more money than we've got available to us, and they've got, even with, as Simon said, we've both got players missing, but the depth in the 2 squads is quite stark, where we're looking at teenagers coming off the bench and trying to mould inside centres into outside centres, and don't have a recognised second row particularly on the bench either, with Ben Donald sort of covering there. Meanwhile, there's a lot of very good, very experienced professional rugby players on that Munster bench. So yeah, it's certainly an overall positive outlook, I think, in a couple of days after the game where you get a chance to sleep and look back on it. I suppose the big talking point in terms of one of the things that did stop us going for the win was our kicking percentage was a very solid 0% on the night. Tony, Tony, that leads me into your totally factual, not conspiratorial at all corner for which you've made your hat for. I think there's 2 of them this evening.
Before I do put the tinfoil hat on, I made a note. I like watching it on telly for the first time. I made notes. I don't normally make notes, but in the first 55 minutes or so, Sheedy's kicks out of hand were absolutely superb. There were a couple of cross kicks in there that were work of art, but out of hand, he was brilliant. However,
for the benefit of people on the podcast, Tony does actually have a tinfoil hat on as we speak.
Yeah, I was bored earlier and I put it together. But I genuinely think the squad doing it deliberately, as in scoring in the corner and making the kicks as deliberate as possible, deliberately difficult as possible. So if you look at the cross kick where Josh Adams scores in the corner, the way he takes it and then he turns outwards towards the touchline just to make it another yard further wide. And then the Tom Bowen try that right at the end, I think, or it might have been the one before, it might have been the 3rd try. Millard has a run and he's through and he's clear. And I swear he slows down, so he's tackled, and then we score in the far corner. Anyway, that is Tony's tinfoil truths. And I'm going to try and make that a feature moving forward. But yeah, it's just like you can have a 0% kicker, stats, it looks awful. but Storm Amy was obviously difficult because I don't think the Munster 10 kicked very well. Beetham's kick that he took when Sheedy was hurt looked awful off the tee. And then, yeah, we're putting Sheedy in difficult positions for kicks, and I'm going to completely ignore the one he missed in front of the posts, just for that. So I've now taken the hat off.
I think it was Johan Lloyd who took the last one as well. So
oh, was it Johan Lloyd?
Oh no, Beetham had one as well, but and then Lloyd missed one at the end. So yeah, it was definitely a tough evening for kickers. But I do think you're absolutely right that people will say, oh, Sheedy, why are we picking him? He's not kicking very well. But the other side to that is of the 4 tries, we don't score 3 of them without Sheedy on the pitch. Like the kick through for Adams is incredible in the face of that rush defence. The little sleight of hand to put Bowen in for his first try, and having done it just before that as well to put Adams through to get us onto the front foot is a really delightful touch. And then the kick for Bowen for his second try, that's all off the cuff as well. I don't think anyone's expecting Man to get that ball off the floor. Teddy flicks it back really nicely, and then Sheedy produces that kick, which, I mean, Bowen makes it look really good by diving in on the catch. He possibly could have just let it bounce and picked it up and scored as well. But obviously we're here for like television moments more than anything.
The Adams one especially, because Sheedy juggles it beforehand, so he's got to readjust and drop it on his foot and put it inch perfect. It's just such a good kick.
Yeah, I think that pass from Jennings felt a bit like shipping it on. Kind of not great ball. I think the commentator kind of went, "Oh, there's a double pump there," like it was a dummy, and I was like, "Was it a bit of indecision?" So I think he just got a horrible ball, and he just made knowing where your wingers are. And I think I agree. I thought he was outstanding. I know he's had a bit of a hard time from some fans last year because of his kicking percentages, but I don't think you can doubt what he brings to the team. I thought he was superb going forward.
Bordy, my question, I suppose, a little bit, just watching the game back and thinking about how I was on the evening, is that at no point did I actually think, though, that the Cardiff were going to win it. I thought we were playing quite well, but I didn't ever feel like we were going to win it. Is that sort of the next step now, maybe, for the team, that they just need to have the confidence to believe they can win it, those sort of games, and get something out of them other than like a sort of brave losing bonus point or 2?
Yeah, I think it was braver than the usual bonus points we're used to. The kind of fight at the end to get that 4th try. But yeah, I do think the game was almost there for the taking at times. It was just a few silly errors, and I think I made a point on the group chat at the time was when Jack Crowley goes for his drop goal, which I thought was really good game management from Munster. It pains me to say. I think it's Munster number 6, might be Tom Ahern, kind of drops a shoulder to Tame Basham. And I think there was almost, I don't know if he makes any contact, but he definitely moves in Tame Basham's direction. Tame Basham was getting quite a bit of speed going. Don't know whether he'd have charged it down. And then obviously there's the argument of if they don't score that drop goal, we don't necessarily go up the pitch and get a try anyway. And we come down, we come away from it with just the 1 bonus point. So it's like, it's kind of that sliding doors moment. But I think, like we've already discussed, it's definitely an improvement from away games from years gone by, especially in Ireland. So, yeah, I a bit gutted that we couldn't take the win, but you've got to take every positive from that. And I think 2 points away is still a massive result, really.
There was another one from Lloyd to Adams. There was like 2 inches off being a perfect pass. I think it was just behind Josh Adams, and he would have been away through. I think it was like in the 70th minute or something. And it's those small margins that are just the difference at the moment. Like, yeah. So I agree. Yeah.
When we said last week that, for the Lions game, those offloads kind of like came off. Maybe the 50-50s came off, and I think this week we saw that it wasn't kind of luck, it landing. I mean, as you said, Teddy Williams's link-up play was incredible at times. Just, again, pulling it back, I wasn't sure. Did he put the pass into Belcher when Belcher made the break?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Just all of that is just seemingly how they're going to play, and they're really confident in it. And those, I don't think we made many bad decisions. I think that there was one, where when Millard got injured, if that had gone one more, Adams was on the outside, it probably should have gone and he shouldn't have taken the contact. But it, like last week, it just felt like everyone knew what they were doing. They were confident in what they were doing. And I think that was where the game plan went right to the end. Because they're like, well, if we keep playing like this, we think we're going to get a chance. Yeah. And it was exactly like last week. The number of ball carriers we were throwing, just the intent right from the kickoff. There was this positivity and this intent to attack. And I think around the fringes as well, I think Mulder made one break, Thomas made one break. There was like picking and going as well. So it wasn't just, we'll get out to the wings because we've got speedsters out there. We're going to challenge you around the fringes and make ground. So it was, the thing I feel most positive about is it was a very similar game plan to last week. It did work again. And it looks like everyone's confident and comfortable with the intent around it, which I think if you've got that as the foundation, you can cut out some of the mistakes. Before the drop goal, Beetham kicks it out on the full. You kind of go, okay, difficult night, but if we cut those things out, I don't know what the penalty count was in the end, but it did feel like we gave them some easy entries. So,
yeah, I thought that there was just a couple of moments like the Beetham one, like the Millard one, and actually that Lloyd one, which doesn't go to hand. You kind of think, does he need to go for the offload and flick it there, or can he just give it to Adams as well? But overall, I think you're absolutely right that we're in play. We're making a couple of right decisions. Simon, one question I do want to ask about decision making though is around penalty time when we're winning penalties. If I think back to last week, we went a man down against Lions. We have a penalty in front of the post. We choose to go for the corner, end up missing that. Towards the end of the game, then we have a number of kickable penalties, which 3 points could have made it safe and go to the corner there. On Saturday night, we have one kickable penalty. We miss it. The next one, arguably a bit more kickable. Then we go back to the corner. Are we making the right decisions there? How much is it being influenced by maybe a lack of trust in the goal kicker? But is scoreboard pressure something which we're not quite putting on teams enough?
Yeah, I mean, that one that was closer to the post was a surprise because he should have, even with the conditions and the distance, that the penalty that was missed, you kind of go, actually, most 10 should be landing that even in tricky conditions. It's pretty straight. And then we get one right in the shadow of the post and like, right, okay, we're not going to take this one. So you do kind of wonder where the strategy is, whether it's where it is on the pitch. We'll decide, like, if it's within the 22, we're going to try and put pressure on them. I think we had a couple of penalties where we messed up the line out again from 5 meters out, which is happening too often. I think one of them was a knock on. Munster made a mess, and there was one that was just a clean take from Munster where we did exactly the same move that we'd done in the line out before of going to man right at the back, and they just lifted somebody who basically caught it cleanly on his chest and was, so there's a bit of, we obviously have confidence in it, but we're not. Is it misplaced? I guess because we are. If we can rule that out, then yeah, I'd go to the corner because I think there's something really telling about not showing fear in those situations sometimes where you go, actually, we know we're on your patch, but we're going to kick to the corner, we're going to back ourselves and we're going to score tries. I've seen it done to Cardiff so many times. There are times when we played the Ospreys where I'm like, oh my God, just please kick the goal. Don't kick it to the corner because I can't deal with this again. And inevitably they kick it to the corner and score a try. So I think there is something around early on in a game going, we're confident in what we can do. I do think the kicking of the penalty when we did have one and missed it was probably the right decision at that point. So I think we do need to mix it up. But I mean, the one with the Lions before half time was frustrating because we're down a man, and you can eat up time as well at that point by taking a penalty.
It's that that's the problem. Is it's the game management aspect of it. Like you said, you eat up time. It's 60 seconds plus that goes at that point. You're right, Simon. Sorry.
Yeah, and you're pretty much, you're not far off half time. Then you're just catching and going again. So, are we making the right decisions? I don't know whether we're getting the return from the kicks to the corner, but that's our own fault because we're not securing the line out ball. I think if we secure that ball, I feel relatively confident that we can do something with it and score or get another penalty. I think it's a real contrast, isn't it? Because the kicking out of hand is really good, really contestable. We're turning teams, but yeah, and even the kick into the corner is going in the right places. I think it's more a line-out issue, really, than a decision to do it. I think if you're going to do it, you back yourself, but you've got to win the ball, because if you in tight games like this, if you don't get the 3 points and then you're overthrown at the line-out or losing the line-out, it doesn't have the negative effect on the opposition.
We've we not great kicking the goals, not great for the lineouts. I suspect in a couple of weeks I'll be asking, like, why are we tapping and going from everywhere? Because we just got no other options. Yeah.
It's unstoppable if you throw a second row up the side of the contact. It's unstoppable, right? So
it's certainly something for Cudneas and Van Zyl to think about, because I just think we are missing that. Just nudge a 3 points over a couple of times a game and just add that little bit of doubt. I think the point you make about sending a message with kicking to the corner early on is absolutely right. But just those moments, sort of either side of half time, where you're like, oh, just take 3 points and give us a bit of a cushion or get us back in touch. And we just can't do that. And that is a big issue for us at the moment. Tony.
Sorry, Dan. There's a thing about that scoring at last in the first half and then trying to score first in the second half. That can make a massive swing in momentum. So it just baffles me that we don't try it more, or we don't utilize it more.
Yeah, it's a big NFL thing, that, isn't it? You want to receive the ball at the start of the second half because you want to score first at the start of the second half to get you going. Yeah. Moving on to a couple of individual performances. Ben's 3 words thought were just Bowen, Bowen, Bowen. He scored a hat-trick, becoming the youngest hat-trick scorer for Cardiff in the professional era. He was 8 months younger than Rhys Williams was when he scored a hat-trick against Neath in May 2000. Chris Chekai cruelly pushed into 3rd place by 11 days. He was 11 days older than Rhys Williams was when he scored against the Ospreys in March 2006. But Tony, it's not really a question, really, but like, Tom Bowen's quite good.
I like how you throw to me about wingers, by the way.
You look like a winger kind of guy.
I did. The last line of my notes is 2 points out here is huge. Tom Bowen is my hero. And I think that's the only way to describe him at the moment. I love watching him run. He looks like he's moving. He looks like a cartoon character, because it looks like his legs are going faster than his body should allow them to. And he just makes catches like that. I sent a video to a load of my mates who play cricket who don't watch rugby, and I just went, get him in the slips for the Ashes, and I think that about sums it up. So
he presumably, do you think he could be an outside bet for Wales in the autumn?
I thought you were going to ask for England then.
No.
In the cricket,
England and Wales bracket.
Sorry. I would have a look at him if I was Wales, especially with Sherratt there. But you'd think he's not right at the top of the pecking order, especially with how young he is. There's still that development angle that you want to go through, because I think he is still designated as a rags player this year. So he's been pushed up because Brady and Elijah Evans obviously got injured in pre-season, and we're still struggling a little from Stevens and Cabango being not fit yet. So you'd think that he's going to get game time, but it's going to be more limited. It's just about trying to manage his development in a way that brings him through, but also doesn't stifle it.
Yeah, he will get injured at some point as well, is what I'd say, because it just always happens. Like, young wingers come in and they score a few tries, but they inevitably get injured at some point adjusting to professional rugby.
there's also like a joke about it, but there's also his size aspect. Like Munster targeted him in the first portion of the game on Saturday, and he coped all right with it, but still aerially, we're going to get found out if you've got three small wingers and stuff. So.
Fordy, another player who maybe comes into international reckoning, I'm not sure, but Alan Lawrence has been great again across the first two rounds of this season. He won the URC Man of the Match against Lions, and although on the losing side, I think probably could have been a candidate for it again on Saturday, getting through so much work. Clearly, Faletau's ahead of him in our pecking order and for Wales, presumably when he's fit, and Wainwright has started the season well, but is there an argument that says Lawrence deserves to be in that squad at least as recognition for some of the performances over the last few weeks, or is he one of those players who's like his ceiling is really good pro level player for the club?
Well, yeah, I wasn't expecting him to have as much of an impact as he's had so far in these first two games. I think particularly he was putting in some bruising carries from like the first minute. He might have like received a kick and just bowled someone over in the first minute, and then he assists the last try as well in the 80th minute. So his work rate is phenomenal across the 80 minutes. He's certainly a different type of player. I think with Wales at the moment, the last couple of years, we've really lacked kind of carriers, and that's essentially what Alan Lawrence does, is just carry all game. The only issue I see is that he's essentially, I know he can cover six, but he essentially more is just an out and out eight, and it's either you start him at eight or he's not in the 23 at all. And I think especially with where Wales are at the moment, there's no easy games at all. Like I think years gone by against a team like Japan in the autumn, you'd maybe test a few new combinations, give a new cap to a player who's playing well, but I don't think that will be the case so much now. And it all depends on, I think everyone's wondering what type of team Steve Tandy wants, because it's all kind of, he hasn't been a head coach for a good 7 years, and you wonder how much of like the Scottish team, how much of an input he had in the Scottish team in the years he was there. So I think Alan Lawrence would be good enough to pull on the international jersey. But I think as well, like the options to cover eight in the squad, you've got Wainwright, Faletau, obviously. You could even have Plumtree cover eight. Ross Moriarty's back in Welsh rugby, and someone like Morgan Morse has age on his side. So yeah, I'm not entirely convinced, but like I said, I think he'd do a job for Wales.
Yeah, massive good news story for him personally, though, thinking that he was essentially out of rugby a couple of years ago when was he at Jersey?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then gets picked up by us and just as cover, and then goes on a tear last year where he looked like one of the best players in our side, and then has started this season as well as he finished the last one. Like it's such a good news story.
I think it's like Belcher, isn't it? You'd hope he can pick up a cap somewhere.
Yeah.
Just because of what he's done. But also, we need to be, everybody wants, the ultimate aim is to play for your national side and to get that cap and to tour with the Lions or something like that. But we've got to be careful that we don't end up in Welsh rugby as that being the only reason somebody should play for a side, and we've got to, I'm not for a moment suggesting that's what this question is hinting at, but it is the risk with the new way of things and the potential future that it's only if you are potentially going to get that cap should you be kind of at the elite level. And I just think it's Alan Lawrence, Belcher, Millard are all great examples of being a really top quality club player at the top end of the professional game as well. Is a really high standard, and we should celebrate that as well. And that's just I guess it's just I'm throwing forward a bit to what might come down the track with two teams or three teams that we end up. Well, why is that person playing for Cardiff or for whoever we end up being called? Not we, but the collective we of Welsh rugby, because they haven't got a chance of winning the cap. Well, because you need players like Alan Lawrence, you need players like Millard.
They probably become more important as well if there's only two sides, because the internationals would be away for a decent chunk, you would still imagine. So you need players that you can build a team around week on week on week on week, and that can drive you through.
And if you look at the players that are really, Dan Thomas was excellent on Saturday, and there was no reason for Basham not to play, but I thought he was superb. Even when he came on against the Lions, won that turnover. Got some great turnovers on Saturday as well. You need those players that are the glue that hold the rest together. My concern is that we end up going down a route of, well, what's the point? And we lose those players from the Welsh system, who are just, I think, really important.
I think if you look at Leinster these last 2 weeks, there's a danger there that for a long time they've basically been the national team almost, Ireland, with like a sprinkle of a couple of the others. And for a good period of time, they did have those sort of good quality pros underneath. Rhys Ruddock, played about 4,000 games for them over 20 years or whatever, but never really got a look in from Ireland. And there's a couple of others like the Byrne brothers who were never fully involved. Luke McGrath, the scrum half, played a load of times for them as well. Those guys have kind of gone away. And the all-encompassing focus on the national team of the last few years, this golden generation, means now the Leinster squad players that are left are not at the same level as they were. And that's going to have a knock-on effect for Ireland then in a couple of years then, when they're not bringing through the good enough players at test level. And so, I agree. I was just looking at Alan Lawrence now thinking, I wonder how many times he's played for Cardiff. He's played 51 times for Cardiff. And it's like, he's been away for a while. He never really got a proper look in that first period he was here, which that's another story about giving lads a proper chance as well to establish themselves in the first team when they're around that age. But, he's just quietly crept up to 50 appearances without really you kind of noticing, and that's the sort of players that get you into the playoffs at the end of the season and get you into the latter stages of European competition as well, where then if you have a Faletau who's fit or whatever, he comes in and wins it for you. But you cannot forget about that level underneath the national team where solid pros are basically the ones that win clubs the trophy, which then give the national team the chance to go on and be successful.
And it allows Faletau not to play week in, week out, because there's confidence in what's, that middle group, that if there wasn't confidence in that, we would have to pay Talupe week in, week out, because we wouldn't have it. So, it's to the detriment of the Welsh game that we lose. I'm not saying that we will, but if we end up without that really good top level professional player that maybe won't get 50 caps for the international side.
As someone who stands in the crowd, he's the perfect sort of player that I want. Josh Navidi used to be like this before Gatland discovered him, because he lost 3 number 8s in the build up to the New Zealand game. But Navidi would turn out week in, week out, and he would make carries and he would make tackles, and they would get the crowd going. Like, as a crowd, we are naturally quiet, no matter what as a overall thing. But when something exceptional happens or a player does something on the pitch, then that's when we go, and it's then becomes that cyclical thing of the crowd's up, so the players are up, so the crowd gets up further, so the players get up further. Like Big Al bumping a lad in the first couple of minutes has you on your feet, and that's exactly what we need to see from players to help us get going, to get everyone to get going. Anyway,
having said all that, Simon, I'm now going to ask you a question that came from a listener, Nathan on Twitter, who says, when you look at the 10s playing across the regions currently, do you think Sheedy deserves a recall to the Welsh squad based on his current form, or will his goal kicking be considered simply not good enough for international rugby?
Just picking for his goal kicking. I haven't seen much of the other sides, to be honest, this season. His all-round gameplay, it comes back to, I guess, the point that's been made earlier about what type of game does Tandy want to play. I think his performances in these first 2 games merit a look, without a shadow of a doubt. Ben Thomas was kicking for Wales. at 12 as well. So I don't think that the kicking is an issue. I think if you're looking on form, we've got 6 points, played really well. The others haven't got 6 points. So, we're scoring. We've got 2, but try. That's easy to say. I'm not used to saying it as a guy. Try scoring bonus points. He is making the backline move. So I'd say, yeah, I don't think the goal kicking is an issue if you have Thomas at 12 or somebody else, kind of what was a halfpenny type character at 15 that was kicking goals. I don't think that's necessarily an issue. But if you're looking at where Wales are, the number 10 role is not nailed down. I think he's in with a shout, because if you look at, is it Edwards at the Ospreys? Dan Edwards, still quite young and quite, it looks like he's got potential without a shadow of a doubt. But do you want to be bringing in someone that young, this close to a World Cup? It's one of those, almost like Bowen, where you could throw them in and absolutely end up never seeing them again, because we know that the Welsh rugby public can chew up players and spit them out if they don't perform. He's got to be given time, and his development needs to be handled right. So you have got Sheedy, who's what, 28, 29?
Yeah, 29, 30 way,
30.
I think.
Yeah. So you do have that bit of experience. So in form wise, I don't currently know of a better 10 in Wales currently on form. Not to say that is the be all and end all, but so who would it be? Edwards, Sheedy, or
Edwards and Costello.
Costello.
And then you've got, obviously, Gareth Anscombe performed that sort of experienced third 10 role a bit last season. Jared Evans is technically still available, as it turns out, but I don't think Anscombe comes into the equation now he's gone to France necessarily.
His legs have gone as well.
I just don't see him. I think that ship has probably sailed a little bit. And then Costello was not in the Scarlet squad this weekend. He picked up a knock in their first game, so not sure how fit he is. You've got obviously Johan Lloyd with us. Joe Hawkins can play there as well. But yeah, I think you're right that just in terms of form and experience wise, there's not many others who are putting those two things together. Dan Edwards has got a lot about him, but is very young still. Costello just cannot stay fit for long enough to actually build up any sort of form, really. And then the others are, Lloyd doesn't always play at 10, Hawkins doesn't always play at 10, Anscombe's away. It's not a great spot, the 10 jersey for Wales at the moment.
But it's also, some of those players have had the chance to nail it down. And for a variety of reasons, just haven't. So it feels like this autumn, by the end of this autumn, Tandy needs to know what 10 he's going with, and that's got to be kind of in place. We can't, I don't think you can go into like another Six Nations, and then is it World Cup after that? I can't remember what year the World Cup's in.
2 years World Cup.
That's because I stopped paying attention to international rugby. But you kind of need to build that, and build that game plan around someone. So you either go, actually, the age of a Sheedy isn't going to take it. We're going to start from scratch again. We're going to put all our eggs in Costello and Edwards' basket, and that's how we're going to work. We're going to build their confidence for 2 years' time, and that's the cycle. Or you go, actually, he will still be around. We need a sensible head, an older head at 10. You need somebody that can work with Thomas as well and bring out the best in him, which I think is probably a bit more of an attacking 10.
I think so. Edwards was the 10 when we beat Japan. So for me, he starts with the jersey because he was the last one to have it, but as long as he's fit, give it to him in the first game. Have Ben alongside as long as he's fit, and then go from there. For me, 9 is probably the more interesting conversation for Wales. But yeah, I like Edwards was 10 when the streak was broken, so I would stick with him and then see if Sheedy can come off the bench. I wouldn't be starting with him over Edwards currently.
Well, what's your 9 conversation that doesn't just have Thomas Williams in permanent marker?
Oh,
Put
I
the
just
hat back
presume
on,
Thomas
Tony.
Williams.
Put the hat back
I
on.
just presume that Thomas Williams will be injured.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so,
Thought you were going to say
um,
Kieran Hardy.
Like if you were getting kicked off the pod then if you suggested anyone other than Thomas Williams.
no, I just presume Thomas Williams will be injured again. So, or whoever's going to back him up. So, as long as
That's
it's not
fair.
Hardy. So.
That's we've gone away from the Munster game a lot there into
Yeah.
Wales squad selection somehow, but I think that draws an end to that first part. I've just been sitting there stewing, thinking, Fordy, you said two things which were 100% true, but absolutely contradict each other. That Wales have got no carriers, and then reeled off a list of Wainwright, Faletau, Morgan Moores, Ross Moriarty. I was like, how have we got no carriers with that list of players involved? I don't know what's gone wrong there in that attacking game.
Well, I think there was definitely a point where like both Faletau and Wainwright were injured, and all those others were not playing. And I just remember we just had no front foot ball at any time, so it's just completely etched into my brain forever now.
It was 100% true. It's just mad that we've ended up in a scenario where we've got all these good carriers and we just cannot get across the game line at all. It is mad. Maybe that'll change.
I think that's been a massive difference for Cardiff this year. You know, we've always gone, oh, we haven't really got ball carriers. We need that big bruising lock to come in. But I think the system seems to show so far, if you can use those ball carriers in the right way, in the right spaces, and quick ball as well, because the ball was really quick again on Saturday, you can make ground. And I think, you know, just to, I guess to kind of round off the Munster, I thought our line speed was excellent as well. We were making them throw passes that they didn't want to. They were fumbling the ball because we were up in their faces. And just a shout out for the scrum, which I think went pretty well. Won a few penalties, lost a few penalties, but certainly didn't look under pressure, which it can do. And there was, you know, always had a lot of concerns about Wainwright and Sebastian's. Are they destructive scrummagers? And I think there was a couple of
I thought Sebastian
scrums. Yeah, there were a couple of early scrums that were just channel one ball. It was just, you know, that Lawrence was just taking it. It was past the scrum before they realised it was out. I think it was just really clever use of, you know, of the scrum to get the ball away and then to turn the screw a bit later on as well.
I think Sebastian got the rough end of a couple of decisions as well. But that is from I was sitting on my sofa, not as close as I could be to it. So it just looked like the Munster prop was hinging over, and that then forced us to lose our footing. There were quite a few slips early doors, so I'm going to put it down to that. But yeah.
And that is top quality podcasting to knit all the first part together there. So we'll leave that one there for the Munster game. Moving on to news, there's only one piece of news which has been slightly altered while we've been recording this podcast, which I'll get onto now. The piece of news was that Josh Adams was linked by Neil Fissler to the new R360 competition in Rugby Pass. Adams out of contract at the end of this season, and I think probably is a player who you think they would go after, somebody who has been at the top level, like, you know, Test Lion, scored a lot of tries in Rugby World Cup, but is now at a point of his career where maybe he's thinking about, you know, moves to elsewhere or taking a bit of a last paycheck, as he's more than entitled to do before heading into the latter part of his career. I say it's changed slightly as well. We've been recording on this Tuesday evening. A multi-union statement signed by New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, Ireland, England, Scotland, France, and Italy has come out saying each of the national unions will be advising men's and women's players participation in R360 would make them ineligible for international selection. Wales are not a signatory, but have put out a comment saying that the WRU supports this statement. Obviously not enough to actually write on it, but they support this statement. We are considering changes we may need to make to qualification rules in Wales as part of ongoing analysis following our recent consultation process. As we continue to analyse and understand the proposals, we reserve the right not to select men's and women's players for international duty if they participate in this competition. So, bit more Dave Redding word salad there, but basically they haven't decided if they're not going to select people from it yet.
They can't make a decision. They have to pay a consultant to come in and make the decision for them. So, yeah.
Is there a more WRU response to anything than, oh yeah, we're agreement at this, but we're not quite ready to sign it up because we have to go away and consult the committee about it? I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, we do not help ourselves at all. And was going to slightly include in the news that the consultation process is finished and we're waiting to hear what is coming out. And mention that Dave Redding is doing this media tour, which I mean is just going from bad to worse for him, to be honest. He has got Corporate Handbook 101 and is absolutely rattling through every single chapter of it and destroying any sort of, I don't think there was any confidence in them anyway, but I think he just needs to be quiet until the result comes out at this point. I don't understand what he's trying to achieve by going on Scrum 5 and BBC, and also they're getting Sean Lloyd in every 2 weeks to do interviews with him, which isn't coming out very well either. So, yeah,
She
that's
has
sort
to
of
come in and do interviews so he can clarify the stuff he said in his last interview, which then means he needs to clarify the stuff 2 weeks later. The man's a joke.
It's becoming it's a bit The Office meets Partridge at this point now with him. It's yeah, it's not going well. But we'll get onto some team news in the Connacht bit. But that was sort of it for news wise, unless anyone has any Cardiff based news.
No,
I was just going to slag off Reading again. So let's move on.
I think Adams is an interesting one though, because I think the impression I get with him is that he's really settled, and the interviews he gives are, you feel he has a connection with the club. And I'm not saying that other players don't, but you just feel that he is owning that leadership role and holds that responsibility. And no one would begrudge him the payday at all, whether it's in fantasy rugby league or whatever it's called, or Japan or wherever. But I just get the feeling that he's quite content where he is and with family and settled. And I wouldn't be surprised because the money on offer, and obviously they get to keep their own image rights, which is equally important, and work from home, which is real bonuses. But I wouldn't be surprised, but I would be surprised because he seems quite settled. I think he's quite an important player, and it was good to see him getting a try on Saturday as well.
I do like the idea of Josh Adams rocking up for the first leg of R360 in Tokyo, and he's got a big Trade Centre Wales banner on his back as he runs out on his global thing. That'd be quite good.
Why is your view?
Right, Rags Corner is a quiet one this week because the game against Ebbw Vale on Saturday at the Arms Park got postponed. The Storm Amy broke the rugby posts at the river end of the ground. Tony, that tinfoil hat's coming back out again. Please feel free.
So this isn't my tinfoil conspiracy. It's all the Ebbw fans' tinfoil conspiracy that we cut down the post because we didn't want to play them after they battered us 62-20 last week. So I saw one comment saying, surely there's a carpenter they can find to come and fix the post, which just made me laugh. So yeah, anyway.
Wooden post, that's a throwback.
I know.
Yeah, well, I think they came. I don't know if they came out and said it, but it certainly transpired that the posts from next door at the Millennium Stadium don't fit in the Arms Park. And also, if you want to try and put them back up again, I mean, if you were an Ebbw fan and wanted in the middle of a storm to try and erect a set of posts, particularly get up on the ladder and put the crossbar back on, please feel free to do so next time and invite us all in to watch because that would be quite comical.
Can you imagine if we just chucked it back up? Oh yeah, it'd be fine. Put a screw in it, it'd be okay. And then it falls down during a game. It's an Ebbw player, and then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, what have we done?" It's like there's obviously health and safety stuff they've got to go through to make sure like all the bits and pieces are still working properly as they should be, especially with a game on Saturday. Like it's just. Yeah.
The long and short of it was no game on Saturday anyway,
Yeah.
and there was a suggestion. Rob Rees from the SRC podcast tweeted today, in which I was very tempted by, was that we could fit it in this weekend because there's no SRC this weekend, and it could be a double header at home. But the lack of noise on that so far from the club suggests that's probably unlikely to happen now. I think they'd want to give themselves more than a day's notice. So we wait to see where that one is rearranged to. But as things stand, no game for the Rags this weekend. Instead, I thought a brief update on sort of academy players in the pathway in general, as there's been quite a few playing outside of the Rags this season. So Joseph Jones has been regular in the Merthyr squad in the Premiership, scored a try for them on his first start. Cam Tyler Grocott played for Pontypridd this weekend, making his debut for them. And Callum Donahue Proud, the tight end, has been playing for Cross Keys, which is a slightly odd one, as obviously they are not within our pathway, but the coach there, Chris James, obviously a long time link to I think he's St. Peter's, but apologies for St. Albans. Kane James's dad, of course, and there's a pre-existing relationship there. So a guy who would be very good to operate under for Donahue Proud as a young prop coming through. And then elsewhere, Dylan Barrett and Gabe Williams have both been playing regularly for Cardiff Met's Premiership team this season, as they are freshers at Cardiff Met before hopefully stepping up to the Bucks team at some point this season if they impress. So Dylan scored a try on the weekend. Sean Davis has been playing for Cardiff Met's Bucks Super Rugby team. He came off the bench in the Cardiff Clash on Wednesday. Decision made that with Ian Davis coming into the Rags and Ethan Lloyd still there, that Davis get some game time with Bucks Super Rugby before playing for the 20s again after Christmas. And Ollie Das was on the other side of that Cardiff clash, starting for Cardiff Uni on the wing. Scored a couple against Swansea in round one, but couldn't stop the Uni falling to a comfortable defeat at the hands of Cardiff Met, who avenged their loss in the second Cardiff clash last season. At this point of the pod, then, if you are enjoying what you're listening to, please feel free to like and subscribe on whatever podcast platform you're on. Leave us a good rating as well. If you're on YouTube, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Loads of pods coming out all the time. Head over to the Global Gainline channel as well. They've just passed 800 subscribers on the road to 1,000. We will finish this week's pod looking ahead to Cardiff's game on Saturday night. Another 7:45 kickoff for the Blue and Blacks as we host Connacht. For the fourth time this calendar year, we'll be playing the Irish side at the Arms Park. The three games that took place in 3 months earlier in the year, we lost 19-28 in the pool stage of the Challenge Cup, then 24-19 in the URC, before going down 35-20 in round of 16 of the Challenge Cup. Slightly better news, though, that we have won 6 of our last 8 encounters against Connacht in the league at the Arms Park. Connacht beat Benetton in round 1, but didn't play last week because the Scarlets purposely drove their plane to Manchester, blaming it on wind, but they just obviously didn't fancy it, and so they didn't have a game. Their team report says that Mac Hansen is back fit after his exploit with the Lions over the summer. Their previous week team report said that Bundy Aki and Finlay Bealham are returning to training, but no mention of either of them this week. So, I mean, like, if they do play, great, because you get to see good players, but more fingers crossed they don't play after Aki really put us under pressure in that Challenge Cup pool game earlier in the year. Other players, Harry West is fit. Answers on a postcard. I don't think I've ever heard of him before. And Josh Ioane and Byron Ralston are questionable for the weekend. From a Cardiff perspective, Ed Byrne and Corey Domachewski were both meant to play for the Rags on the weekend. Obviously, didn't get a chance, but we assume they are now fit and available for selection. Whether they're properly match fit or not, I guess, is the consideration for team selections. Believe that Kieran Azarati was just rested, and so he's available. Same for George Knott, who hasn't had a chance yet. Just don't think he's had a look in with the way that the squad's been set up. Lee Halfpenny, Talupe Falatau, and possibly James Botham will be returning before the autumn internationals, but are not expected to be quite ready for this weekend. Cam Winnett does appear to be fit. In a video put out by the club today, he was seen doing some kicking and aerial work, so we assume that the knock that kept him out on Saturday was just a minor one. He'll be back involved this weekend. Ben Thomas remains suspended, second game of his hopefully 2-game suspension if he can pass tackle school. And then the two we don't know about are Callum Sheedy and Harry Millard. Sheedy looked somewhat uncomfortable with a limp right shoulder, having been hit quite hard before that kick through for Bowen's second try. And then Millard, as we mentioned, his punishment for not making that pass to Adams was to be tip-tackled, and it seemed his whole body just collapsed, as I said, off air. Like, he was limping on both sides and one of his shoulders looked hurt. So it looked like a nasty one that is going to keep him out this weekend. No suggestion that anyone's going to come in, so we'll get to what on earth we're going to do about centres in a minute. Fordy starting up front with the front row as a general one. We've got, as I mentioned, Byrne and Dom are presumably fit and available again. Evan Lloyd was just a rested job last week, as far as I'm aware, and then Kieran Azarati, the same thing. So what would you go for as your starting 3 in the scrum?
I think personally I'd go for the same 3 from Saturday, because I thought they played very well. It's got some domination at the scrum, and I think just for consistency as well, it's positive. Yeah,
Any objections to
Did
that?
Belcher go off injured, or was he?
As far as I'm aware, it was just I looked back and there was no obvious injury to him at all. He didn't get any treatment or anything.
Felt tactical.
Yeah, I wonder if maybe the HIA thing the week before had played into it a little bit.
Yeah.
He hadn't trained fully maybe in the week leading up to the game, but there was no obvious injury there, and he was up and about, leading the team down the sort of player tunnel at the end. Um, so he comes in the second row. I mean, I'm assuming there's no argument with McNally and Teddy again. I just might just record myself saying that and then just edit it in every week because it's just the same conversation.
You need to wear a green t-shirt so we can just keep changing the shirt.
Tony back row. We mentioned earlier Dan Thomas had a good game, having switched with Basham. I don't think there's much call really for Mann and Lawrence to drop out. Have you got any strong preference on who wears the 7 jersey?
I'd pick Basham again. These are the games that we bought him for, or signed him for. Dan Thomas was brilliant. Put him on the bench or whatever, but this is why Basham's here, right? Give us that experience.
Sounds fair to me. Yeah, I can't argue with that. And then, well, I'll come around to everyone for this back line question because it's not even like an individual position when there's so many players that can fit so many positions. So I'm going to put Mulder at 9 because like 1 or 2 little errors last weekend, the kick out on the full and a little handling error, but just generally his speed of ball, I think he's borderline undroppable for that speed of ball at the moment. It's so integral to our attacking game. And then Simon, I'll start with you. I think if we assume that Sheedy doesn't start this weekend, either on he is injured or it might just be time for him to rest and give somebody else a go. What is your 10, 12, 13 combination?
Tony laughing. Whoever's left. It's either that or it's a fan raffle, isn't it? We've said it already that 13 will end up in a fan raffle at some point, and we'll all get 20 minutes out there. If Sheedy's fit, I would play him because I just think the form he's in, you just say keep going until you can't go no more. I don't feel worried about Lloyd playing there. I think they play a similar type of game. And then I think 12 and 13, if Millard is injured, you either bring Beetham in at 12 and move Jennings out. Can Jennings play 13? My concern would be just whether he is quick enough out there.
My concern is, can Jennings play 12? Sorry.
I think, if Jennings can't play 13, do you put Beetham out there? 13 is such a key position in terms of what Millard's done really well in terms of, and Ray did it for years, that kind of spot blitzing and really kind of bringing the defence round to cut out the ball getting out wide. So it's not a position that you can just, and the other thing, I guess the other one is, do you move Adams in 1, which I don't think anybody is particularly a fan of him playing at 13, but he has played there before. I would genuinely go with Emmanuel at 12. I just think I understand why Jennings was picked on Saturday, but I think you've got to just show some trust. And we're at home, we are playing well. Why not give him the go? Maybe have Jennings on the bench. The other thing is, can Lloyd? There was a talk about Lloyd being a 13 as well, but I don't think he's played there for a long time, if at all. So this was the position we always knew, we predicted we'd get in. So yeah, I think if you went Sheedy, Emmanuel, Adams, it's a bit patched together. I think probably if you're going with Adams, do you put Jennings in because at least you've got somebody with a bit of experience inside that can help you. Maybe that's a little bit too much to put Emmanuel between an inexperienced outside centre. This is a very long-winded way of saying I've got no idea. But I look forward to finding out who they can dig up to stick in the 13 channel.
Bordy, I don't know if you've got a strong 12-13 combination in mind.
Oh, I've written in my notes the back line is an absolute lottery. So with my view, I kind of think I'd be more comfortable having Adams at 13 and someone like Beetham on the wing, or like someone who can kind of just slot in at wing that can do kind of the backfield covering, rather than the reverse of having someone like Beetham at 13 who's barely even played centre as it is. And likewise, if you put a Steph Emmanuel or a Jennings at 13, I think at least there's almost a more breadth of knowledge for Adams at 13. I know we've seen that Ireland game a few years ago where he didn't have the best of games at 13, but I still feel I'd be more comfortable with him at 13. It'd be nice if we had more than two fit wingers. I'd feel a lot more comfortable then. But yeah, I think I would go Sheedy 10. I'd be tempted to go for Broke and go for Steph Emmanuel at 12, just give him a chance at home to just kind of go for it. It'd be a different story if I think Bundiaki's starting. I'd just be worried in general for anyone who's playing centre. But yeah, I think I'm more inclined to go Sheedy 10, Steph 12, and Josh Adams 13.
Tony, I don't know if you've got anything to add on that.
I mean, I agree with Fordy that for me it would be Steph at 12 and Adams at 13 with Winnett and Beetham doing some sort of jiggery pokery. But I guess the other option that you have is the bus. or you put Adams at 13 and maybe look at Good Child or Of This Paris Derry Cross out as like cover out there as well. If you don't want to throw Beetham and Winnett on the pitch at the same time, that because of the bench flexibility.
The bus is Jason Harris, just for
Sorry,
anyone who's
yeah.
not up to speed on Rags nicknames. That having
It's
he
not
ran the
Rags
Cardiff
nickname.
Half Marathon last week, mind, and
He
he's going to
did.
come in and play against Connacht on Saturday night.
So the evolution of the bus nickname, by the way, is that when he signed, Owen Lane was the winger, which is the Lane train, and then Jason Harries always came on in place of Owen Lane, so he became the rail replacement bus service, shortened to the bus.
Now he's become a heavy hitting centre for the Rags. But yeah, the Rags players are an interesting suggestion if there's a couple who might be able to. I mean, obviously,
especially with them not having a game this week.
Yeah, they might be available to have a week off and do some full-time training. Oshan Darwin-Lewis is obviously the other option as a kind of left field one in the academy.
He's only 19 though, isn't he?
He's very, very young. And I think predominantly sort of played 10, 12 coming through like under 18 and has only shifted to doing more 13 stuff a bit with the Rags last season. So I have to say I penciled in Emmanuel Beetham as my centre partnership, but 40 has convinced me about Adams there coming in. It might be quite a good idea that Emmanuel Adams and then Beetham on the wing. I think that sounds like it covers bases and it gives a youngster a chance. And yeah, Adams had a bit of a nightmare at test level, but I would like to think at club level, a guy of his experience would be able to get in there and do a job. Matty Young might also be available to come in on the wing as well if he's fit. I don't know exactly what his he was out for a few weeks in inverted commas at the start of the season, so I don't know what that means exactly. But yeah, I think that's a pretty settled team of Mulder and then Sheedy if fit, Lloyd if not, with Emmanuel and Adams in the centre, Bowen and Beetham on the wing, and then I presume we're all happy that Winnett just comes back in at 15 if he's fit and available. Bench wise, I mean, this could be a laugh. Finding anybody left to sit on the bench outside backs might be an 8-0 bench at this point with no forwards. Loose head cover. Obviously, Barrett's been doing it. Young guy. Is there an argument anyone wants to make for go in a bit experience and put in a Byrne or a Doma back on there and give him Barrett a week off?
Byrne was in the video they released today doing tackling stuff. I don't know whether that's a nod to him getting some game time on the bench, especially as he was meant to play against Abu and didn't get any game time. So
I think if you have that bench of say either Domachowski or Byrne, who do we pick at tight? No, pick same team. Is it? I'd say
So,
Azarati at tight
yeah,
head,
Zarate replacement.
and then I mean either of the hook. I'm assuming it will be Evan Lloyd, will it?
I would have thought Evan Lloyd comes back in for Hughes this weekend. Yeah.
Quite a physical front row to bring on. So you could see that kind of 55, 60 minutes changing that front row, to bring on that level of experience and go, okay, we're really going to go after the scrum now. And nobody's mentioned what the weather's going to be like on Saturday, which is just, it's I'm not sure whether it's the only reason people tune in, but to know what the weather's going to be like is really important. But that would be quite a strong front row, I think, to bring on in terms of both set piece, but physically as well.
I did have a look at the weather forecast, actually. I forgot to actually note it down, but it's just nice. I like, like, I don't know why they spend so long telling you about the weather on the news. Just one word, it's nice. Like, it's dry and not that warm and clear. So I think I think that's a really good replacement front row of Lloyd, Byrne and Azarati for this sort of game. If we have Donnell and Thomas, then 19, 20, and then I guess how we put the bench together, if Sheedy isn't available and Lloyd has to play at 10, I think you have to go 6-2 then, because I don't really think there is anybody left to sit on the bench. You'd have to go with Ali Davis and Jennings as your bench options. If Lloyd is available for the bench, if Sheedy starts, then you could still get away with a 5-3 with Lloyd and Jennings as your outside backs, and Donald and Thomas. Tony, you're pulling a face.
No, I just had a flashback to pre-season where Ellis Bevan ended both pre-season games on the wing. So we have to be 6-2. Can we be 5-3 with 2 scrum halves on there?
We could. That I would feel unusual to like do that as a ploy, but maybe that's
but with Bevan covering scrum half, Jennings covering 10-12. Bevan covering wing, Jennings covering 10-12, Beetham covering 12, and then moving around. And then should have enough positional flexibility to get by, so to speak.
My sort of counter to that too would be, is Bevan there as a genuine wing option, or are you losing a replacement spot by just having Bevan there in case of emergency of injury?
Yes.
Thank you.
I do wonder whether, if we end up in a position where one of the back row is going to have to play some part of the game in the centres. And I think with a player like Basham, maybe he could, I'm not saying be a 13, but if you were really forced into an emergency situation, which we don't feel like we're far from, could you be playing him in a kind of weird hybrid back row 12 position, shunt everyone out one? And
with a name like Basham, he's crash ball 12, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, his feet, he's got quick feet as well. So could you, and that would be like if the injuries stacked up in the game and we went 6-2 and we had to bring someone on, could you fit him in there? I'm not saying that's, one of these genius international coaches that changes somebody's complete career trajectory because they've seen something in them. But if it comes to that, he's probably the back row that you go, okay, yeah, I think you could probably, last 10 minutes or so towards the end of a game in that position, and maybe we wouldn't be too exposed. I'm not saying he should start there.
There is something of the Ben Earls about him that could do that sort of that hybrid job if you needed him to, and a bit of Ellis Jenkins as well. He obviously used to that one game against Stade Francais where he played every position on the pitch, I think, bar Waterboy. Right, so I'll run through what we've put together just about. We started 1 to 15. Danny Southworth, Liam Belcher, Javan Sebastian, Josh McNally, Teddy Williams, Alex Mann, Tane Basham, Alan Lawrence, Johan Mulder, and then Sheedy if fit, otherwise Lloyd. Bowen, Emmanuel, Adams, Beetham, Winnett as the back line, and then a bench of Evan Lloyd, Ed Byrne, Kieran Azarati, and then Ben Donnell, Dan Thomas, Aled Davis, and Rory Jennings definitely, and then Lloyd if needed. Otherwise, you probably switch to a 6-2 and put Knott or somebody like that or Thornton on there as a genuine second row cover. It's it's makeshift. 40, can it win, do we think?
Yeah, 100%. I'll just say that. Confident.
I like that. Simon, what do we need to do to get at Connacht, or is it just a case of if we go and play our game, we go and win that one on Saturday night?
We've just got to beat them. We've just got to beat them. At some point, we've got to stop playing Connacht, and we've got to beat. They're always a tough side. I do have massive respect for Connacht because they are sometimes not given the resources that others are. But I think, I think other Irish sides are experiencing that as well, maybe. But they come with a game plan. They're tough to beat. They're going to be tough to beat on Saturday. They're going to be really well organised. Aki is a really important player for them. I think if he's not playing, they are a slightly different side. But they did us 3 times last season, and it was really disappointing. Kind of all 3 games, like the one in Europe at home, we didn't really show up. We just let them wander off with the game, and we're like, oh, we've lost that. I think away in the URC, there was weather, which surprised us again in Connacht, and we just couldn't reel them back in after half time. They played the conditions much better. And then the other game, the quarterfinal in Europe, it was just a bit of a strange performance. Didn't feel like we had the confidence. I think we've got to beat them. I think we've got to win our home games. I think the promise so far, if we win this game, we go into the Dragons game with a spring in our step, and it doesn't matter as much to us as maybe it would if we've lost. And I think going into that with, what would be 10 points with a straight win, and I'd take a 6-3, to be honest, over Connacht. That makes the Dragons game a little, but I think that's going to be a really tough game out in Rodney Parade. So I think if you're going to target a win, it's this one. Don't see any reason why we can't, but I felt like that every time we play Connacht, and we don't beat them.
Tony, Connacht games tend to be, we're quite similar, I feel like, as a 2 teams, but I always feel like they produce these sort of like niggly forwards who you've never heard of before, but they just rock up and like have really good games. Is this a game where we can properly show off a much improved forward pack and actually go out and dominate the side up front?
If we play like we did in the pre-season game against Leinster, whatever team they put out, and the first 2 games that we've played so far, like we've definitely got the ability to do that, especially if the pack isn't changing that much from the Munster game where we were really good up front for big portions. Like there were errors, as we've talked about, but we look like a side who can get at teams up front now, and that's something that we've not been able to say of a Cardiff team over years. So having that and relying on just playing how we're playing, like don't worry about there's an Arsene Wengerism basically where you don't change your game plan for the team that you're playing against. You just play your game because that's how you build consistency and that's how you build efficiency. And be comfortable in what we're doing, and we'll win. Just win, baby.
I think what will be interesting is, we are going to change. The centres look like they're going to have to change. One of the strengths, as I said, has been that speed. I mean, Alex Mann's MO's is starting to become like running through lineouts to push over scrum halves. But I think that is the intensity and the intent that we've been playing with, is really get up into their faces. I think Crowley chipped over once and regathered and went. I think we'll probably see teams starting to try and work us out by trying some of those chips. So that kind of sweep behind whatever the kind of blitz defence is going to be really important, I think, because I think Connacht might well kick the ball a little bit more. I don't know why I think that, but I just think they'll try and pin us, and then we do concede penalties. So I think it'll just be really key that whoever is playing in that centre can maintain that intensity, but the sensible way in which Millard's been doing it, which isn't just blindly running up and getting caught, but getting to the right man and forcing the knock on, or forcing them to rebuild from behind the gain line as well. So I think that's just, a bit of a concern with the change in midfield.
And finally, 4D, is this must win in terms of obviously giving one to Connacht, but also in terms of like playoff and beating teams around you and winning your home games? Like, this, is there a danger that we don't win on Saturday and it could seriously derail us?
Yeah, I think it probably is a must win if we want any hopes of playoffs, because these are the sort of games we have to win, really. To put into perspective, last season was 3 of the opening 5 games we won, or 3 of the opening 6 games we won, and we just missed out at the end. If we get these games kind of nailed down, then we won't be looking back in May time going, damn, we missed out on beating Connacht. And I think we need to just nail down every home game. I think I mentioned it before, of we really need to make, I think the Arms Park is quite a scary place for some away teams to come to anyway, but I think we really need to solidify that. And I think a win this Saturday will certainly make a bit of a statement.
Yeah, definitely echo those thoughts. Like 7:45, such a killer kickoff time, I know, for a lot of people. But oh, here we go, Tony, go on.
So the club has previously said before that their preference is like Friday evening and Saturday, like 5-ish sort of kickoffs. And we were getting really good attendances, selling out games. And all of a sudden, the league have gone, no, you can only have 7:45 kickoffs on a Saturday night, which completely derails people's evenings. Like, people come to us and then go out in town. So my conspiracy theory, Tony's tinfoil corner with the hat on, is that the WRU have gone, their attendances are too big. URC, can you give them later kickoffs on a Saturday so less people attend, so we can be more justified in making our decisions to get rid of teams? Anyway, the hat's coming back off again.
I don't know what this podcast has become.
I'm just here for the lines, mate. I'm waiting for Lee to edit me all out, so it's fine.
The kickoff time thing is ridiculous.
Yeah.
So right across the league, that 7:45 kickoff on a Saturday night, it's a TV decision, and it's like now got an 8 o'clock kickoff in the Premier League on a Sunday night, some weekends, or a 7:30 kickoff or something like that. And it worries me, just because it is a steady erosion of fans being able to get to games and to maximise people watching a game live. And I think the more rugby, and the television contract is undoubtedly one of the biggest contracts that any league can, and I'm totally realistic about that. But we saw during COVID that rugby played in empty stadiums feels weird and isn't actually as interesting. And I think those powers that be within the URC and within World Rugby and within the unions, at their peril, start moving further to what we're already a television league, the URC, because we've got South African sides, we've got Italian sides. You are watching most of your away games on television, particularly if Transport for Wales can't get you back from Llanelli or Swansea after like 9 o'clock on a Saturday night. But that's another matter. And I do.
At least we know to talk to about that now, though.
Yeah.
Surely our new chairman's got contact.
Well, yeah, okay, yeah. We can get the return of the football special for rugby away games. But I, in all seriousness, I think they really need to look at kickoff times, because you're not going to grow the game by having kickoff times that just nobody likes and nobody really wants to go to. And that's, we're going because we're season ticket holders and we go regardless of times, and we'll go to away games. But I just think, it is a serious point, and it does cause a problem for Cardiff. That time.
I think particularly you're right, it's a TV league, and you have to take your medicine with that to a little degree.
Yeah.
And I don't like a one-off 7:45 on a Saturday or one or two a season. It's just how many we've ended up this season. Like we have pretty much all of our home games up until Christmas are Saturday 7:45, and then after there's a couple of like Fridays and stuff as well. I know the club did try and move one or two, but it didn't quite work out. I will try and be
around
positive.
to my thinking. It's a conspiracy.
I will try and be positive about it, though. That rugby under the lights is great at the Arms Park, so do come down and experience that if you can. There's a really good student offer this weekend as well for if you're just come back to UWIC or Cardiff Uni, or not UWIC, Cardiff Met, so it's a throwback, and to USW. I think it's £10 ticket and pint offer, which if you've got no money, then that is good for you to get in, and hopefully you enjoyed the Cardiff Clash of the week and want to kind of get involved with that. And Cardiff Town Centre does have quite a few bars which you can go and have a drink in before a 7:45 game as well, and watch any sports before. So hopefully we'll still have a good crowd. Despite
I think it's bring a friend for free as well this week, so you can apply for a free ticket as well. So
we go even
for a season
more.
Ticket. Oh dear.
Then do try and get down. And it is cliche and stuff about Pat Cap and the players saying how much it means, but I do think it generally makes a massive difference when the crowd get behind the team at key moments, and you can get on top of the referee a little bit as well, and get on top of the opposition. So do get along and support if you can. Massive game this weekend. Any other business? Anybody? Anything else? No. Any more tinfoil hat stories, Tony?
No, that was my last one.
Until next time.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Right. Well, thank you very much, gents, for joining me. Thank you for listening. We'll be back on the pod next week, looking back at the Connacht game and ahead to the first Welsh derby of the season as Cardiff prepare to travel to the Dragons. But until then, hopefully we're talking about a win. Good luck to the Blue and Blacks on the weekend. Thank you for listening.